Remember the Sega Mega Drive? The best console Sega ever released, and their only one that didn't suffer from some sort of poor development or financial problem? Well, if you don't, then don't worry, because the fine folks at Sega have released a little time capsule to give you a peek into the life of a Mega Drive. Lovingly burned onto one disc for your enjoyment are 27 classic Sega games that'll take you back to your innocent childhood. Or dateless teens. Whichever it was for you, it was that chunk of your life from the late 80s to the mid 90s. Holy shit, you're old. Holy shit, I'm old. I was brought up on the Mega Drive. My own mother was a beta tester for Sonic 2, and I never really stopped playing. When my console got knackered, my Shining Force 2 cartridge was assassinated by my cat, I turned to emulation, and later on, re-releases on other consoles. The first time Sega managed to abuse my nostalgia was the Sega Classics Collection for the PlayStation 2. A small 10-game compilation that I played to death, right up until it got replaced by the updated slice of yesteryear awesomeness. That is the 27-game compilation Sega Mega Drive Collection on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. So, let's start off with the information you all seek. And no, that's not just how much of EA's dick can BioWare fit in their mouth. It's the list of games in the Sega Mega Drive Collection. We have all of the must-own titles like Sonic 1 and 2, Altered Beast, Phantasy Star 2 through 4, the whole Golden Axe series, to the lesser known but still awesome games like Echo the Dolphin, Echo Jr., Rise Star, Comic Zone, Columns, Virtual Fighter 2, Shinobi 3, and Shadow Dancer if you have the US version, Vector Man 1 and 2. You also have the token oddballs, Alex Kidd, Gain Ground, Super Thunderblade, Bonanza Brothers, Sword of Vermilion, Kid Chameleon, Decap Attack, and Flicky. And to top it all off, there's a huge library of art, history, unlockable games, and interviews with the original creators of many a classic. Now, though I could probably go into thorough detail about most of the games in this collection, that would keep us all here for hours, and I am under no illusion as to how much pool I have. So I'll lump the whole collection into 4 areas: platformer, strategy, RPG, and the others into, other. Platformers are the first on the list, and there are a lot of them here. Basically, you'll run, fight, and run some more until you reach the end of a level. Except Echo, who gets to swim instead. This genre includes such games as Sonic, Altered Beast, Comic Zone, Flicky, Decap Attack, Kid Chameleon, Shinobi, Rise Star, Vector-Man 1 and 2, Golden Axe 1, 2 and 3, and of course the strangely endearing Echo the Dolphin games. All of the games have solid gameplay, and each one provides a fun and familiar experience. Most of them don't require too much thinking, time, or even much of a learning curve. You just pick up the controller and play. There are of course a few exceptions. Comic Zone and the Echo games are pretty darn hard. Not only is their gameplay fairly complex, but it takes a little while to get the controls and play mechanics down. Also, several of the other platformers, including Sonic 2 and the Golden Axe series, really do require a friend to make them any fun or even just to beat the game at all. And friends are hard to come by, unless I pay them, the bastards. Unlike the platformers, no two of the strategy games in the collection are remotely similar to each other. Each one of the 3 strategy games you get is designed to appeal to a different age group. Columns is your generic Tetris ripoff, but anyone of any age can lose entire hours to this game of multicolored gems. Bonanza Brothers is a wannabe crime strategy game, It uses the age-old formula of get into somewhere, yoink a valuable object, and don't get caught. There's less of a learning curve than there is for columns, but I found this one a lot more frustrating and nowhere near as addictive. And the last strategy game is Gain Ground. It's basically a Gauntlet clone. It's not bad, and unlike the other two strategy games, it requires no learning curve or even any real effort. The Sega Mega Drive Collection boasts 4 complete RPGs, or 2 if we count the overarching storyline of Phantasy Star 2 through 4 as a single game. Now, these ones aren't anything like modern day Phantasy Star titles, in tone at least. The classic titles were very hard-edged techno-fantasy role-playing games that weren't afraid to let your favourite characters snuff it, usually just when you'd bought that schmancy new blaster for them. The other role-playing game is Vermilion. It sticks more to your classic fantasy themes prevalent in most role-playing games. But while it does have your usual kill the evil wizard / knight / dragon theme, it's still a captivating, well-made role-playing game worth checking out. The remaining 2 games each live in a category of their own. One is Virtual Fighter 2, a fighter that's best played ice cold with 2 people. And rounding off the compilation is Super Thunderblade. It's a game that's very much like Outrun, except with helicopters and guns. There's not really much to it, considering that it was made in the late 80s, but it will easily consume an hour or 2 of your life. The best thing about the gameplay features in all of these games isn't in the games themselves per se, it's in the reset and save load anywhere feature. Very much like save states on emulators, it can make parts of the harder games easier to complete, almost to the point where certain areas crumble to your all-powerful touch. Then again, that's probably a lot better than my cartridge stomping, controller throwing rages just because I used up my last continue on that 7th level mini-boss. The save state feature notwithstanding, some of these games are still just as hard as they used to be. Shinobi, Phantasy Star 3, Comic Zone, and Vector Man are still harder than they have any right to be. Enemies are too powerful and I keep dying. Or even worse, I get lost in Phantasy Star after a couple of hours. Where the bloody hell is a minimap when you need one? On the other hand, a few of these games like Sonic and Golden Axe are a lot easier than I remember. But no matter what the difficulty level, most of the games are still fun for at least a good half hour. And that's what the Sega Appeal was, just to have fun and pickle your brain with video games. And these days, Nintendo is the only survivor that still carries that flag. Sound-wise, these are classic games from a classic era. You get the best MIDIs gamers could afford back then. And many of these sounds are classics, like the Vector Man firing noise and the Sega at every startup. Now, if the sounds sounded a bit strained from your TV in the mid-90s, expect them to sound exactly the same today. This is just emulation, albeit at its finest. Still, most of the sound effects fit well with the games. Moving to music, some of the games actually have fantastic scores that are still great to listen to. Sonic has always had great music. Phantasy Star's soundtrack is beautiful, and even Golden Axe 3 had a great theme tune. Well, for the 90s anyway. The music of some of the older games in the collection, like Alex Kidd and Flickies, do tend to get on your nerves fast. Although thankfully, if the music does bug you, shutting it off is as easy as accessing the in-game menu. It's a bit hard to talk about graphics with games that have been around this long. though I have to say that some of them have aged pretty well, especially given that a good 15 years have passed for the youngest of these titles. Sonic's pixels just never seem to age, and Comix Zone could probably pass as a fairly recent 2D platformer. On the other hand though, some of the late 80s offerings like Alex Kidd and Kid Chameleon have aged with less than perfect grace, looking terrible no matter how much I try to tweak things. But then again, I've always advocated that graphics don't matter much when the primary purpose of a game isn't to look pretty, but to offer a little slice of fun that you couldn't usually have in real life. All in all, the Sega Mega Collection is a great compilation. I recommend it to anyone who loves a bit of retro gaming. I'd also recommend it to anyone who never got to experience the Mega Drive when it was still relevant. The replay value is endless, and the ability to save anywhere makes the games great for those of you who aren't college students, and thus don't have at least 4 hours a day to devote to gaming. And with the Sega Mega Collection being available for a pittance in most gaming stores, you owe it to yourself to grab a copy for your PlayStation 2 or PlayStation Portable as soon as you see it.